ABCs of Death is a horror anthology made up of 26 parts, each representing a letter of the alphabet and each directed by a different director. So I'm going to try and get through all 26 parts in one video. Let's do it. A is for Apocalypse, and this segment shows a woman bursting into her husband's room and just like brutally attacking him. She stabs him, she throws boiling water at him, and she just beats his ass. When he asks her why, she reveals that she has been trying to poison him to kill him for months and it's just not working. So she had to quote unquote speed up the process because she's been watching the news and there's not enough time. They sit together defeated as we hear sirens outside and they just sit there waiting for the world to end. B is for Bigfoot, and this one is about this couple that's babysitting this young girl that refuses to go to sleep. So they make up this story about the abominable snowman who will take kids out of their beds if they are not asleep before 8 p.m. And he'll ring his bell when he's coming so that you know. So it works, she gets into bed, she starts to go to sleep, and then she hears a bell ringing, but it's supposed to be the trash collector. But instead, it's this homeless man who breaks into the house and brutally kills the couple. When he goes into the girl's room, he finds her under her covers counting sheep and he leaves her be. C is for Cycle. This one is about this guy who weird shit starts happening to him. He sees a puddle of blood in his backyard, he starts hearing noises, but when he goes to investigate, there's nothing there. And one day his wife disappears and he can't find her, but he finds a hole in his backyard hidden by this bush. He gets sucked into this hole, and when he wakes up, he is back in time to the night where he heard the noise, and it turns out he's the one who made the noise. And then in the morning, he sees himself getting sucked into the hole again. But then that Bruno, that's his name, is killed by another Bruno, and that's how the puddle of blood got there. So it turns out he's in a time loop where he just perpetually keeps getting killed. D is for Dogfight. So we see this guy who's wearing these dog tags with the name Buddy on it, and he enters the ring with this dog and they start fighting. Eventually the dog bites the man in the neck, but the man yells out Buddy. That causes the dog to stop, and then he turns on his handler, and we see a bunch of lost dog posters revealing that this dog is Buddy, and he belonged to this guy, and that's where he got the dog tags. So then the two of them team up on the handler and presumably kill him. E is for Exterminate, and this one's directed by Angela Bettis. This guy sees a spider in his apartment and keeps trying to kill it, but keeps missing it. And eventually the spider manages to bite him. After about a week, the man is still being stalked by this thing, but manages to kill it, but he starts having a weird pain in his ear. And it turns out it's because the spider laid an egg in there and they all start to hatch and crawl out onto his face and he dies. This one gets the award for the weirdest segment in the whole thing, and there's some fucking weird ones. F is for Fart. And it's about this schoolgirl who has this weird obsession with her teacher, Miss Yumi. One day at school, there's a gas leak that kills anybody that inhales it. So the girl and Miss Yumi manage to escape and go into a building. And it's at this point that the girl reveals that she wants to smell Miss Yumi's gas instead of the gas leak. So Miss Yumi farts, and then the two of them just get pulled into this gas-surrounded dimension and they kiss. G is for Gravity, and this one we get a POV shot of a surfer. For some reason, he straps a bag of bricks to himself before he goes out. He gets out to the water and drowns, and then we see the camera change perspective and we see the surfboard bobbing vertically like this. H is definitely in the running for the weirdest one. This one is for hydroelectric diffusion. So this one is supposed to be like a World War II setting, but instead of people, we have these humanoid animal creatures. This bulldog goes to a strip club where the stripper is this fox woman, but it turns out that she is a Nazi and they are enemies. And she traps him over a pool of electrified water. But then the bulldog hears the voice of Winston Churchill in his mind, which gives him the strength to knock her into the water instead. Yeah, I don't know. I is for Ingrown. This one is about this man that is keeping his own wife hostage and she is chained up in the bathtub. We see him inject her with motor oil, which causes her to violently scratch at her skin and her throat. And eventually she dies and we hear her voice in a voiceover narrating this monologue. And she basically just talks about how her husband's abuse makes him a primal animal and he is no longer a man. J is for Jidai Jeki. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's Japanese for samurai movie. So this executioner is preparing to behead this samurai, but the samurai starts contorting his face into these really weird, impossible ways. The executioner panics and then sees that the samurai is performing seppuku. Might be saying it wrong, sorry, but he's disemboweling himself. So the executioner continues with his beheading and then his head is just laying on the ground with one of these dumbass expressions. K is for Klutz. This is our first animated one. In this one, a woman goes to use the bathroom at a party, but her poop refuses to flush. It starts jumping out of the toilet and making noises and squeaking and pretty much attacking her. It ends up re-entering her, which causes her to fall on the ground dead. And as that happens, it proceeds to leave her through her mouth. L is for Libido, and this is by far the most disturbing one, heads up. In this one, there are these two men strapped to a chair, and they are forced to various different performances. Whoever finishes first makes it to the next round. And the loser So this one guy keeps winning, but the performances keep getting more and more bizarre and disturbing. And eventually it gets to one that includes a little boy. So the guy refuses to continue and passes out. When he wakes up, he is tied to a bed with a woman on top of him doing her thing, and she takes out a chainsaw and offs him. M is for miscarriage. This one is directed by Ty West. This one is showing this woman who is trying to unclog her toilet, and eventually she finds a plunger, and we look in the toilet and see that what is in there is an unborn, yeah. N is for nuptials. This one is about this couple, Shane and Anne. They have a pet parrot. Shane ends up proposing to Anne. Everything's really happy until the parrot starts blurting out shit that makes Anne realize that Shane is cheating on her. So she grabs a knife and she stabs him. O is for orgasm. This one is really surreal and abstract. Like the images we see all look like this. This one shows this man and woman doing their thing, and eventually he pulls out a belt and strangles her. P is for pressure. This one is about this woman who's a sex worker. She's trying to support her 3 children. One day her boyfriend steals all of the money that she had saved up. So now because she's desperate, she accepts this photo shoot, but it turns out they want her to crush a kitten with her heel on camera, and she does it. Q is for quack. This is a personal favorite. So this one's directed by Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett, and it's meta because they're talking about how they got the worst letter in the alphabet and they don't know what to do for their segment. So they have the idea, why don't we make ours the only one that features an actual death? So they find this duck and they go out to the desert to shoot it. But as they go to do so, both of their guns jam and they accidentally shoot each other and die, leaving the duck alive to just watch. R is for removed. This one is the grossest gore-wise, I think. So this one's about this guy that is being subjected to having his skin removed because his skin somehow produces 35mm films. We see that he's weirdly somewhat of a celebrity and people gather around him and want to touch his skin. But eventually his skin is producing less and less film, and one day he manages to escape and kills a few people in the process. Eventually he makes it to this train track where he crushes himself under one of the cars, and then it starts raining blood. S is for speed. This one is about this woman named Roxanne who kidnaps another girl from an outpost in the desert. She throws Lulu in her trunk and we see that she is being chased by a hooded figure. Eventually she runs out of gas, so the hooded man runs up to her. She tries to make a deal with the man, but he refuses and is like, you at least gave me a run for my money. And when she takes his hand, it's revealed that she died in a drug den. So the other girl wakes up and takes the same drugs that Roxanne took and just hallucinates. T is for toilet, our only claymation one. So this one's about this little boy who is scared to use the toilet. One day in the bathroom with his parents, the toilet develops these eyes and this mouth and brutally kills his parents in front of him. But it turns out it's just a dream. But when he wakes up, he has to use the bathroom for real. So he's sitting on the toilet, but above him, a loose screw comes out of the bowl, which startles him and causes him to fall, and his head gets stuck in the toilet seat. His father comes in and laughs at him, but then the toilet tank falls and crushes his head. U is for unearthed. In this one, we get the POV of a vampire coming out of its coffin, and we see that it comes face to face with this mob that is trying to sedate and kill it. It manages to escape from the mob, but then it stops and feeds on a woman, and eventually it's shot by an arrow and knocked unconscious. When the vampire wakes up, it finds that the mob has taken its teeth out and driven a stake through his heart, and eventually they cut its head off as it stares on at them. V is for vagitus, and this one takes place in a dystopian society where women have to petition to give birth. So this one woman does so and gets approved, but then discovers that she is infertile. So she and her partner, who is a robot, break into this facility. They find a family, including a baby, which the robot kills. Though the baby was beheaded, it turns out that it's still alive and has these psychic powers, and it proceeds to kill the woman's boss. And the father of the baby, as he's dying, looks at the woman and just says, "You're its mother now." W is for WTF. Similar to Q, this one is meta, so we see the director working on his segment. His friends tell him to come look at the news, and it's this segment about these zombie clowns and other weird shit, including a woman fighting a giant walrus, a flying baby, and the newscaster's talking about how it's the end of the world. And then the director's head is cut off by this warlock, and he just screams, "What the fuck?" and the thing ends. X is for XXL, another fave. This one's about this woman who is constantly being belittled for being overweight. So one day she decides to cut all the fat off her body, and she walks out of her bathroom completely bloody looking like this. Y is for Young Buck. This one's about this creepy janitor. He teaches this little boy how to hunt, and then it's implied that he SAs him. Later at school, he licks up all the sweat of the boys playing basketball, and eventually the boy shows up and kills him with the antlers of a severed head of a deer. The final segment is also very weird. Z is for Zetsamutsu, which means extinction in Japanese. There is this doctor that is being shown the quote-unquote positive aspects of American culture. He's shown these really fucking weird images. He eventually stands up, as does his part, which then starts shooting shooting out rice.